For a long time, the galaxy had many opinions about humans, but most of them were not good. People across the stars called them Deathworlders, a name that made others nervous. It came from the fact that humans came from a harsh, dangerous world full of storms, predators, diseases, and disasters. Their bodies were strong, their minds could handle pressure, and their instincts were shaped by survival. Many peaceful species felt afraid of them without ever meeting one. The stories spread through space painted humans as unpredictable, wild, and too powerful to be trusted completely. But the truth was much more complicated. Humans had survived their difficult planet not just because they were strong, but because they cared deeply for each other. They helped, protected, and stood together. They learned compassion from suffering and unity from danger. Yet most species never saw that side. They only saw the weapons, the warships, the hard training, and the fearless attitude. So the image of Deathworlders stayed strong in the galaxy's imagination. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from disputes and power struggles, lived the Luminaries. They were almost the exact opposite of humans in every way. Their moon, Lyra's glow, was peaceful, soft, and beautiful. The forests shined at night with glowing leaves. The rivers carried tiny particles of light. Even the animals were gentle, calm, and harmless. The Luminaries themselves were small, with glowing patterns on their skin that shimmered like stars. They spoke softly, moved gracefully, and believed deeply in harmony. Their entire culture was built on art, songs, stories, and healing. They knew how to calm storms inside minds, not how to survive real ones. For thousands of years, they lived without war, without weapons, without the idea that someone might try to hurt them. Conflict was something they read about in old texts belonging to other worlds. They believed that if they were peaceful, the galaxy would respond with peace. They trusted to isolate. They welcomed visitors. They treated every species with kindness, even if they did not understand their ways. And because they never prepared for danger, they were one of the most vulnerable species in the galaxy. The Galactic Council knew this. They knew the Luminaries had no defenders, no armies, no shields. But the Council had other priorities. Their meetings were always filled with debates, votes, politics, and long discussions about economics, territory, and treaties. Peaceful worlds that offered no strategic benefit were often ignored. The Luminaries were loved for their culture but not considered important for political power. They had no rare minerals, no advanced technology, no military value, and no influence in council decisions. As sad as it sounded, their survival was not at the top of anyone's list, except for the humans. Many years before the crisis began, a small group of human diplomats visited Lyra's glow during a cultural exchange program. They brought medical teams, scientists, and teachers, hoping to build trust with peaceful worlds. During that time, something happened that created a bond between the two species. A human child named Alina, the daughter of one of the diplomats, became very sick due to an unknown moonborne infection. The human medics tried everything but could not find the right cure. It was a Luminary healer named Saralune who stepped forward. She held Alina's hand, used her bioluminescent energy to calm her fever, and prepared a healing mixture using plants humans had never studied before. Within hours, the child recovered. To the humans who witnessed it, Saralune wasn't just a healer. She represented the gentle power of a world that rarely asked for anything in return. And humans never forgot someone who helped their children. Even after the diplomats left Lyra's glow, they carried stories of the Luminaries back to Earth. Soldiers heard about them, pilots heard about them, doctors, researchers, and common people all heard about the glowing healers of the gentle moon. A silent respect began to grow. Humans told the story everywhere, about how a peaceful species saved a human child with nothing but kindness. This memory remained in human hearts. Even when the rest of the galaxy forgot, time passed. The galaxy grew more complicated. New alliances formed, and new threats appeared. Among them was the Korvath Dominion, a rising predatory empire known for expansion and destruction. They believed in strength, conquest, and fear. They targeted weak planets, took resources, and forced civilizations into submission. The Council tried to negotiate with them many times, but the Korvath only grew bolder. When they set their eyes on the Luminaries system, the Council reacted with panic but not with action. Some Council members argued that the Luminaries had no military value. Some said the Luminaries were too far away, too risky to defend. Others said that angering the Korvath might start a war. So many excuses were made, and so many meetings ended without a decision. While the Council talked, the danger grew closer, and the Luminaries, innocent and unprepared, did not even understand what was coming. But humans understood. When the first whispers of trouble reached Earth, they remembered the healer who saved one of their own. They remembered the glowing species that had never harmed anyone. They remembered that the Luminaries had no shields, no weapons, and no allies strong enough to stop a predator empire. And even though the situation was uncertain, humans didn't wait for permission. Instead, they sent a small humanitarian ship, the Horizon's Dawn, to check on the Luminaries and bring supplies just in case things turned bad. When the crew arrived, they saw fear in the eyes of the Luminaries. They saw evacuation shelters being built slowly by hand, because the Luminaries didn't have machines for such things. They saw families worried about a future they didn't understand because their peaceful minds could not imagine an empire planning to destroy them. The humans tried to teach them emergency procedures, safety drills, and evacuation routes. The Lumeri listened politely, but it was clear they had never thought about danger like this before. They were people who sang under glowing trees at night, who created art from the light in their hands, not a people who could prepare for war. The crew of Horizon's Dawn sent urgent reports to Earth, and when human leaders read them, they immediately understood two things. First, the Lumeri were in serious danger, and second, no one else was going to help them. The humans had seen this pattern before. The Council waited, the Council argued. The Council protected its own interests, but humans had a different way of thinking. They could not stand watching innocent lives being threatened. They did not care that the Lumari had no political value. They did not care that saving them might anger a powerful empire. To them, life was life. A small species, a small culture, it did not matter. What mattered was that someone was in danger, and humans had the power to do something. In human history, such moments had happened again and again. When people were abandoned, when the world was silent, someone always stepped forward. It was part of human nature to protect, even when they themselves were afraid. This instinct had shaped them on Earth, and it guided them in the stars. So as the situation grew more serious, the story of Sarah Loon and the human child resurfaced among human communities. Soldiers remembered it. Pilots remembered it. Rescue teams remembered it. They said, if they saved one of ours, we will save all of them. It wasn't just duty. It was loyalty. It was respect. And it was a promise that humans silently carried in their hearts. Back on Lyra's globe, the Lumeri continued with their daily life, unaware of how close danger had come. They still sang their gentle songs. They still painted glowing murals on the walls of their homes. They still believed that peace would guide them, but some elders felt unease. The stars looked heavier, quieter, as if holding their breath, and when Horizon's Dawn warned them again to prepare, the Lumeri asked the simplest and saddest question. Why would anyone want to hurt us? That question reached human ears, and it broke something inside them. Humans knew the galaxy was not always fair. They knew good people suffered while the powerful did nothing. They knew kindness was not always rewarded, and hearing such a pure question from such a gentle species reminded them of everything humanity had fought for throughout history. The right to live without fear, asterisk on one side, a peaceful species unaware of the storm approaching. On the other, humans who felt a rising responsibility in their hearts. The galaxy around them watched and waited, not understanding that something powerful was already unfolding. Because once humans decide to protect someone, once they carry a promise in their hearts, nothing in the galaxy can stop what comes next, asterisk. The Lumeri lived on their moon as if the universe outside did not contain danger. Their days were filled with soft lights, .com sounds, and peaceful routines. Every morning, when the twin suns rose above Lyra's glow, the forests lit up with gentle colors. Leaves shimmered in blue, violet, and silver, creating the feeling that the entire world was breathing light. For the Lumeri, this was normal. They grew up surrounded by beauty, and because their world had never harmed them, they had never learned to fear anything beyond it. Asterisk. Their towns were built from natural materials, luminous wood that glowed faintly, a soft stone that warmed at night, and clear crystal that carried sunlight through their homes. There were no walls around their towns, no barriers or defenses, because they had never needed them. They believed openness created trust, and trust created peace. Even their government was gentle. Instead of rulers, they had a circle of elders who made decisions slowly and thoughtfully, always trying to keep harmony between everyone. They did not have soldiers or guards. Instead, they had healers, teachers, and artists. One of the most respected places in their society was the Hall of Light, where the Lumeri gathered to sing, heal, and share stories. Their songs were not loud or complex but soft and soothing. The glowing marks on their skin shifted with emotions, creating patterns that expressed what words could not. If a child was sad, the adults around them would glow warm gold to comfort them. If there was celebration, the whole town would shine in bright colors. It was a world so peaceful that the idea of destruction felt impossible. But beyond the quiet beauty of their moon, trouble had begun to grow. The Korvath Dominion had started expanding its territory like a shadow spreading across the stars. They were known to be ruthless conquerors who believed in strength above all. They took planets with resources, enslaved species that resisted, and eliminated anyone they considered too weak. To the Lumeri, the Korvath were not even real. They were distant stories, like dark legends whispered by travelers. The first sign of danger came when a distant outpost in the Lumeri system stopped sending signals. Their communication towers went silent. The Lumeri elders did not panic. They simply believed it was a technical problem. They sent a small shuttle to check, but the shuttle never returned. Instead of fear, confusion spread among them. They asked themselves, why would anyone attack us? We have done nothing wrong. Their innocence was so deep that they could not imagine hostility without reason. Around this time, the humans aboard Horizon's Dawn arrived for a routine humanitarian visit. They were greeted with warm smiles and glowing patterns of welcome. The humans had been to many worlds, but even they were always struck by the softness of Lumeri culture. It reminded them of something humanity had lost long ago, pure peace. But as soon as the human crew heard about the silent outpost and the missing shuttle, they exchanged worried looks. They knew silence in space was never a good sign. The Lumeri did not have sensors capable of detecting hostile fleets or hidden threats. They had no emergency protocols, no evacuation drills, no shields. It was like seeing a small child standing in the middle of a dangerous road, without realizing a vehicle was approaching. The human captain, Mara Henson, tried to gently explain the situation to the Lumeri elders. She told them that silence from a communication outpost usually meant trouble. She suggested setting up basic defenses, even if temporary. She even offered to install simple alert systems. But the Lumeri elders smiled politely and insisted that everything would be fine. They believed the universe worked on harmony, not aggression. They believed that if they never caused harm, no one would harm them. And while their philosophy was beautiful, humans knew it was not how reality worked, especially when predators like the Korvath ruled the dark corners of space during their visit. The humans walked through Lumeri towns, observing how unprepared they truly were. Children played in open fields, glowing like small fireflies. Adults crafted artwork from light, shaping small figures that floated above their hands. Healers treated minor injuries with bioluminescent touch. The humans admired this peaceful life, but felt a painful weight growing inside them. One evening, Sarah Luna, the healer who once saved a human child, spoke with Captain Mara. Sarah Luna noticed the sadness in the captain's posture and asked what she feared. Mara hesitated. She knew the truth might frighten the Lumeri, but hiding it felt wrong. She told Sarah Luna about the Korvath. She explained how they had conquered other worlds, how they looked for weak targets, how they believed in domination. Sarah Luna listened carefully, her skin dimming in worry. She had never heard of such cruelty. Violence was so far from her nature that she could barely understand it, but she trusted the humans. She always had. When the humans returned to their ship, they sent urgent reports back to Earth. They described the vulnerability of the Lumeri, the missing outpost, the possible Korvath threat. They asked for guidance, for backup, for permission to take protective action. On Earth, leaders read the reports with mounting concern. They remembered Sarah Luna and the story that had spread through human communities. They remembered that the Lumeri had saved a human life when they didn't have to. Because of that memory, people on Earth cared deeply about what would happen next. While humanity tried to prepare a response, the Lumeri continued their peaceful routines. They repaired their glowing pathways. They gathered in the Hall of Light for evening songs. But there was a growing unease, a quiet tension. Something felt wrong in the air. The elders noticed the skies seemed slightly dimmer. The animals in the forest were restless. The light in the rivers flickered more than usual. Some young Lumeri approached the elders and asked if they should learn to defend themselves. The elders hesitated. They had never taught combat, never held weapons, and never believed in harming anyone. But seeing fear in the eyes of their youth troubled them deeply. Sarah Luna tried to reassure her people. She told them that humans were concerned, and that humans were a species who took danger seriously. Some Lumeri felt comfort at the mention of humans. They had heard stories about human bravery and loyalty, but had always seen them as distant protectors, not defenders of their own world. Every time the Horizon's Dawn landed, young Lumeri would run to greet the humans, fascinated by their tall bodies, strong features, and confident movements. Many Lumeri admired humans without fully understanding them. They sometimes whispered, "Humans are made of storms," or "Humans carry fire inside them." But those were not insults. They saw humans as beings shaped by their harsh world, yet capable of great kindness. As days passed, more unsettling signs appeared. Distant stars seemed to blink unnaturally, indicating ships moving through the outer edges of the system. Human sensors aboard the Horizon's Dawn detected faint energy signatures that matched Korvath weapon systems. The human crew immediately went on alert. They informed the elders, but the Lumeri still struggled to believe their world was in danger. One elder said, "We have harmed no one. Surely they will pass by." The humans knew this was wishful thinking, but they respected the Lumeri's innocence too much to crush it harshly. Captain Mara contacted Earth again, this time with stronger warnings. Her voice carried urgency. "We need support. The Lumeri cannot defend themselves. If the Korvath invade, it will be a massacre." Her message was broadcast through human space. And something interesting happened. Humans everywhere started talking about the Lumeri. People remembered their glowing hands, their gentle voices, their peaceful moon. They remembered the healer who saved a child. They remembered the stories told by diplomats. A sense of responsibility spread across humanity. They felt protective of the Lumeri not because they needed them, but because the Lumeri represented something rare, pure goodness. Human volunteers sent messages, offering to help. Civilian pilots offered their ships. Medics offered to travel to Lyra's glow. Engineers offered to build shelters. Even military personnel requested emergency deployment. It wasn't an order from the government, it was the human heart responding to danger. Meanwhile, on Lyra's glow, the tension grew day by day. The forests still glowed, The rivers still shined, but something felt different. The Lumeri felt it in their bones, though they had no words for fear. Some began asking the humans for help in understanding danger. They asked basic questions like, what is war? And why do some people attack others? The humans tried to answer in gentle ways. But explaining cruelty to a peaceful mind is like explaining storms to someone who has only known calm sunlight. Sarah Loon spent her evenings walking through the town, calming frightened children. Her glow was warm, comforting, but inside, she feared the worst. She trusted the humans, but she feared that the Korvath would come before help could arrive. The humans aboard Horizon's Dawn did what they could. They installed emergency shelters. They taught evacuation drills. They set up early warning systems, but they knew these were small protections compared to the scale of Korvath attacks. Still, they tried, because humans believe that even small actions can save lives. As the part draws to a close, the Lumeri stand at the edge of something they have never faced. The humans who care for them continue fighting to protect them. The galaxy watches quietly, unaware that its most vulnerable species is about to become the center of a conflict that will reveal the true nature of Deathworlders, not as monsters, but as protectors driven by loyalty and compassion. Asterisk, the tension around Lyra's glow grew slowly at first, like a storm forming far away on the horizon. Most Lumeri did not feel it yet. They were gentle, peaceful minds. But the humans felt it clearly. They knew the signs of danger. People who had lived through conflicts, disasters, and unpredictable events could sense when something was coming long before the threat became visible. On the Horizon's Dawn, the crew spent every hour scanning the system. The ship was small and not built for battle, but it had good sensors. One early morning, when most Lumeri were still asleep, the human crew detected a faint reading. It was a hyperspace ripple. Something large had jumped into the outer edge of the system. The captain, Mara Henson, entered the command deck wearing a tired expression. She studied the data and knew immediately that trouble had arrived. The signature was too strong to be a cargo ship or a peaceful visitor. It was military, and the pattern of the signal was unmistakable Korvath technology. For a full minute, the crew stayed silent. Everyone understood the weight of what they were seeing. A small Lumeri moon with no defenses had become a target. The humans felt a strong rush of anger and fear, not for themselves, but for the innocent species that trusted them. The humans sent an alert to the Lumeri elders. The elders listened carefully, but their expressions were filled with confusion and disbelief. They found it hard to imagine what the humans described. To them, the idea of a powerful empire arriving to conquer them felt unreal, like a nightmare that didn't fit their reality. One elder said softly, "Why would they come here? We have no wealth. We have no power. We have no weapons. What could they want from us?" Captain Mara answered calmly but honestly, "They want to take your world because they can. They want territory. They want to show their strength, and they know you cannot fight back." The elders exchanged worried glances. For the first time in many generations, fear spread through the Hall of Light. Their glowing skin dimmed, even their soft voices trembled. Sarah Loon the healer tried to comfort everyone, but inside she felt the same growing fear. The Korvath were no longer a distant story. They were coming. The humans acted quickly. They began setting up watchposts, simple warning beacons, and evacuation points for the Lumeri. They taught the Lumeri how to stay together, how to move to safe zones, and how to listen for alarms. These were things humans had learned from a harsh world, but they were completely new to the Lumeri. Some Lumeri tried to help, carrying supplies and assisting the humans even though they did not fully understand what was happening. They asked many innocent questions. How fast do invaders move? Will they talk to us first? Can we offer them food and peace? The humans answered gently, trying not to break their spirits. They did not want to tell the Lumeri the full truth that the Korvath did not talk, did not negotiate, and did not care about peace. Meanwhile, more ships appeared at the edge of the system. The Horizon's Dawn sensors counted 3, then 5, then 8 Korvath cruisers. Each one was a war machine with thick armor and powerful weapons. If they reached a moon, the Lumeri would have no chance. The human crew sent an emergency distress call to Earth and nearby human ships. They did not know if help would arrive in time, but they hoped because hope was something humans never let go of. Even when things looked impossible as the days passed, the humans and Lumeri became closer. The Lumeri came to trust the humans deeply. They saw the humans working day and night without rest, trying to protect them. They saw the humans' determination, their worry, their anger toward the incoming threat. The Lumeri learned something new about humans, something the rest of the galaxy often failed to see. Under their tough appearance, humans had hearts that cared fiercely. One evening, as the sun set and the forests glowed softly, a group of young Lumeri gathered around a human engineer named Kiara. They asked her why humans were helping them when their own world was so far away. Kiara paused for a moment and then said something simple that the Lumeri carried with them forever. "Because when someone kind helps us, we don't forget. And because you deserve to be safe." The Lumeri listened quietly. In their peaceful world, such loyalty felt powerful and strange. They began to understand humans in a new way. Not as dangerous Deathworlders, but as protectors who carried strong hearts shaped by hardship. While this bond grew, the Korvath ships moved closer. The humans tracked every movement, counted each ship, and analyzed their speed. They realized that the invading fleet would reach the moon in only a few days. The Horizon's dawn was tiny compared to the Korvath cruisers. It could not fight, it could only warn, protect, and pray that help from Earth would arrive soon. But the Council remained silent. They argued far away in their chambers, discussing whether aiding the Lumeri was worth the political risk. Many species on the Council were afraid of the Korvath and avoided decisions that could lead to war. Meanwhile, the humans acted on instinct, not politics. They remembered the healer who saved a human child long ago. They remembered kindness, and humans always repaid kindness. Humans across space heard the distress call. Pilots on nearby freighters volunteered to help. Medical ships changed course. Even a few retired military veterans sent messages offering to return to duty if it meant protecting the loop. But human space was far, and the Korvath were already too close. Despite everything, the Horizon's Dawn crew did not give up. They trained the Lumerian basic survival skills, taught them how to hide, how to move quietly, how to stay safe if the worst happened. The Lumeri listened with wide eyes, their glowing patterns flickering with fear. They tried to be brave, but their innocent hearts struggled to accept what was coming. One night, Siralun visited Captain Mara. She sat beside her, her glow soft and trembling. She asked a question that broke Mara's heart. Will we survive? Mara did not have an easy answer, but she placed her hand over Siralun's smaller, glowing one and said, "We will do everything in our power to protect you. You are not alone." It was the truth, and it was a promise. By now, the Korvath fleet had entered the inner system. Their ships grew visible on long-range cameras, dark, sharp, and deadly. The sight of them made even the bravest human crew members feel a chill. The Lumeri elders gathered their people in the Hall of Light and tried to offer hope. They told old stories of unity and strength. They encouraged everyone to stay calm and trust the humans. But deep down, everyone knew the danger was growing faster than help could arrive. A small human scout ship finally appeared from hyperspace with urgent news. They delivered a message from Earth. A human fleet had been deployed. Huge warships, fast destroyers, and medical carriers were rushing toward the Lumeri system, but they were still days away. The humans rejoiced, but their joy was short. The scout ship also reported that the Korvath fleet was closer, much closer, too close. If the Korvath decided to attack immediately, they would reach Lyra's glow long before the human fleet. The Horizon's Dawn would be the only thing standing between the vulnerable Lumeri and a ruthless empire. The rising conflict became clear. Time was running out. The Horizon's Dawn crew held a serious meeting. They discussed everything they could do to delay the Korvath, deploy decoys, confuse sensors, create fake heat signatures, and scatter beacons to stretch the enemy's search time. None of these were combat tactics, but they were clever survival strategies. Humans were good at improvising. Their world had forced them to be creative under pressure. Meanwhile, the Lumeri prepared in their own way. They gathered children into safe zones. They moved the elderly into deep caverns. They held hands and sang to calm their fear. Their glowing patterns dimmed, but they did not break. Their world had always been peaceful, but now they learned the meaning of courage, the courage to stay together even when faced with impossible danger. Finally, the day arrived when the Korvath fleet crossed into the moon's protective orbit. The humans watched the screens in silence. Massive warships approached like dark shadows covering the stars. The Lumeri stood gathered in their towns, looking up at the sky, seeing the flickers of metal far above. The humans knew the rising conflict had reached its peak. Every moment from now on would determine the fate of the galaxy's most vulnerable species, and humans, even with a small ship, stood ready not because they were the strongest, but because they cared the most. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and alone, but humans had faced worse before and they did not run. The message from the Zalari changed everything, but the danger around them changed even faster. As the Deathworlder fleet moved deeper into the broken star systems, the silent threat finally revealed itself. For weeks the fleet had sensed patterned ships that appeared briefly on long-range sensors and then vanished. Strange distortions of space that did not match natural phenomena, and destroyed habitats that looked less like accidents and more like precision attacks. Most of the galaxy believed the Zalari was simply weak and unlucky. The humans were starting to understand that something far more calculated was hunting them. The real turning point came on the fourth day of the escort mission, when the Zalari refugee convoy was crossing a quiet, unclaimed star system. There was nothing special there, just a dying red star, a few frozen planets, and a dust belt, the perfect place for an ambush. Commander Hale stood on the bridge of the human flagship Resolute, watching the quiet system with narrowed eyes. He didn't like silence. Silence, he believed, was where predators hid, and humans Deathworlders knew predators better than most. Humans were apex survivors, shaped by a world that tried to kill them every day. Quiet didn't mean safety. Quiet meant something was waiting. The Zalari ships were moving slowly, still damaged, trying to conserve energy. They trusted the humans completely now, but trust alone could not protect them. The first warning was so tiny that most ships would have missed it. A faint shift in the gravitational field, like something massive was pulling on space for a split second. Haley reacted instantly. He didn't wait for confirmation, didn't wait for analysis. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. All ships, shields up. He ordered, "Zellery convoy, hold your position and stay tight." The bridge crew jumped into motion. The temperature of the room seemed to rise as the Resolute powered up its defensive grid. Only 5 seconds later, space tore open with a violent flash. A massive, angular ship burst out of a concealed warp corridor, looking less like a spacecraft and more like a giant metal claw. Its hull was black, jagged, and alive with shifting red veins. It moved like something that wanted to crush whatever it touched. The crew froze. A second ship appeared, then a third, then 10, then 20. Within moments, more than 50 black warships surrounded the Zellery convoy in a tightening ring. The Zellery began panicking over Kumshaltine, crying, pleading. Their fear was raw and heartbreaking. They had seen this before. These were the ships that had been hunting them for years. The hunters finally emerged from the shadows. Hale's jaw clenched. This wasn't just a threat. This was a cleanup operation and extermination, the hunters assumed. Nobody would interrupt. They had no idea humans were here. One of the alien ships broadcast a signal. It wasn't a language. It was a warning tone, sharp and cold, like the shriek of a metal blade dragging across stone. The tone repeated twice, then stopped. "They're telling us to stand aside," Lieutenant Ramos whispered. Hale's expression hardened. "That's not happening." The Zellery leader appeared on the main screen again, tears building in their deep-set silver eyes. Their small body trembled as they spoke. "They have found us," the leader said. "Commander Hale, you must leave. They will destroy anything that protects us." Hale almost laughed, not because anything was funny, but because the idea was so ridiculous that it broke the tension. "We are not leaving," he said. "They want to fight. They picked the wrong species." The Zellery leader shook their head wildly. "You do not understand. These hunters, these ships, they erase entire villages in minutes. Our defenses never matter." Hale leaned forward. "Then watch what happens when Redditors meet something worse than them." There was no bravado in his voice, only cold determination. And the Zellery felt, maybe for the first time, a spark of hope instead of terror. The hunters began to tighten their formation, approaching slowly like wolves circling helpless prey. They ignored the human ships, which was their second mistake. Their first mistake was attacking in front of humans at all. "Targeting scans are increasing," Lieutenant Ramos warned. "They're painting the Zellery engines, not the fleet." Hale asked, "Just these? They think we're a nuisance, not a threat." Hale's lips curled into a dangerous smile. "Let's fix that." The hunters fired first. Thin beams of violet energy streaked across space, striking the Zellery transports, but the attacks never reached their targets. Human ships moved instantly, interlocking their shields around the fragile convoy like a protective wall. To the hunters, it must have looked impossible. Their beams were designed to cut through most shields with ease, but the human defensive grid absorbed the impact with only a dim shimmer of blue light. Inside Zellery ships, the refugees gasped, their bodies trembling in disbelief. They protected us," one whispered. "No one has ever blocked their weapons." Another said, voice shaking, but the hunters weren't done. Their ships shifted formation, adjusting tactics. They began charging their main cannons, massive weapons that could tear small moons apart. The air on the Resolute grew heavy with tension. "Commander," Lieutenant Ramos said, voice tight, "if they fire those, they won't get the chance." Hale cut in. He opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships, prepare counter. Nothing gets past us. Today, we stop running. Today, the Zellery get to live." 100 human voices answered with a single word, "I." The hunters fired again. This time, the blasts were much stronger, bright, thick beams of swirling purple energy that tore through space like knives made of lightning. Humans responded at the same instant. The Resolute unleashed a shockwave cannon, a weapon that used gravitational pulses to shred incoming energy before it hit. Other human cruisers fired magnetic torpedoes, splitting into dozens of smaller projectiles that intercepted the hunters' attacks. A wall of explosions lit up the battlefield. When the light faded, the Zellery were untouched. The hunters stopped moving this time. They finally looked at the humans. For a moment, silence returned, heavy, dangerous silence. The hunters realized the weak third-class species they had ignored was not weak at all, but it was too late. Hale's voice rang across the bridge like iron. "We've defended long enough. Fire at will." The human fleet responded with terrifying coordination. Heavy rail cannons fired from long range, sending metal projectiles at near-light speeds. Plasma batteries roared to life. Guided missiles streaked across the void, locking onto the jagged alien ships with precision no other species could match. The hunters tried to dodge, but the human weapons weren't designed to be fair. The first alien ship exploded in a violent burst of red energy. The second fell moments later. The third cracked open like an egg as human assault drones swarmed through its hull. Inside the Zellery ships, refugees clung to one another, watching the battle with wide eyes. They had never seen anyone fight so fiercely. They had never seen anyone fight for them as the hunters retreated. Human ships pushed forward aggressively, forcing the attackers away from the convoy. But Hale didn't let the fleet chase too far. He understood something important. Predators don't attack in such numbers unless they're desperate or afraid of losing control. The hunters regrouped near the edge of the system, wounded but still dangerous. Hale opened a channel. He refused to speak the hunters' strange language. He spoke in the universal tongue, his voice cold and clear. "You will not harm the Zalari," he said. "Not while humans draw breath. If you try again, you won't leave the battlefield." No threats, no shouting, just certainty. The hunters responded with a screech-like signal, distorted, angry, almost panicked. Then they vanished into a sudden warp tear, fleeing into deep space. The battle was over. The Zalari was safe for now, but the true breaking point wasn't the fight. It was the moment after, when the Zalari leader once again appeared on the main screen. Their face was wet with tears, but not from fear this time. We don't understand," the leader whispered. "Why would you risk so much? Why put your lives between us and the hunters?" Hale didn't hesitate. "Because you needed help," he said simply, "and humans don't walk away from that." The bridge fell silent. Even the humans felt something shift inside the room. This wasn't just a mission anymore. This was a responsibility. And the Zalari understood something they had never imagined before. In a galaxy where most powerful species saw them as disposable, weak, or inconvenient, the Deathworlders were different. They were fierce, terrifying, unpredictable, but their strength was not cruelty. Their strength was protection. As the human fleet formed a new defensive formation and escorted the Zalari toward safety, every remaining member of the hunted species realized the same truth. For the first time in generations, they weren't running alone. They had guardians now. Guardians who would burn the sky before letting harm reach them. Guardians called humans after the battle ended. The galaxy suddenly felt different to the Zalari. For the first time in their history, another species had taken a stand for them, not for reward, not for politics, not for alliances, but simply because it was the right thing to do. But the danger was not over. The hunters might have fled, but everyone on the Resolute knew they would return. Predators do not stop easily, especially when their prey suddenly finds strong protectors. The Zalari convoy still needed to travel through several star systems before they could reach a safe zone. Every jump felt like a risk. Every quiet moment felt like the calm before a storm. Humans understood this too, so the fleet created a protective formation around the Zalari, large cruisers on the outer ring, medium warships in the middle, and smaller escort ships flying closest to the Zalari transports. If anything tried to attack again, the humans would respond instantly. But even with the threat of more battles, something important started happening among the Zalari. The youngest ones, who once cried over every sudden sound, began to move around their ships again. The elders, who once whispered about extinction, started speaking with hope. The refugees slept for longer hours because, for the first time in years, they felt safe. That change was not because the danger was gone, it was because the humans stayed close, like a wall of steel and fire shielding them. Every Zalari ship carried the same thought. Humans were terrifying, but terrifying in the way guardians should be. During this journey, Commander Hale gathered his officers for a meeting. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Everyone looked serious. "We need to understand our enemy," Hale said. "They didn't just want to attack the Zalari. They want to erase them. Why? And how far will they go?" Lieutenant Ramos tapped a screen, showing an image of the hunters' ships. Their ships weren't built for war in the traditional way. They were built for pursuit, fast, silent, and efficient. They're trackers more than soldiers. They're designed to hunt down targets who cannot fight back. Hale rubbed his chin. "And they've done this before." "Yes," Ramos said. "Many times, but always small species, ones that don't have allies." The room went cold. "So the Zalari weren't their first victims," Hale said quietly. "Just their newest." The officers exchanged glances. Anger simmered inside them. Humans hated bullies. They hated predators that targeted the helpless. To them, this wasn't just a mission anymore. It was personal. Another officer, Chief Cora, leaned forward. "We have two options," she said. "Run with the Zalari to safety and hope the hunters stop chasing them, or confront the hunters directly and make sure they never prey on anyone again." Hale didn't answer right away. He stared at the map of the star systems, thinking of the Zalari families, small, fragile, hopeful, sleeping inside their dim refugee ships. He thought of the panic in their voices when they saw the hunters. He thought of the tears in the Zalari leader's eyes when the humans defended them. Then he nodded. "We end this," Hale said, "but not recklessly. We protect the Zalari first. Once they're safe, we make sure the hunters understand that the galaxy is changing." The officers agreed instantly. Humans were not peace-loving creatures like many species. They didn't pretend that conflict could always be avoided, but they also didn't seek war. They fought only to protect, never to dominate. And when they fought with everything they had. As the fleet traveled, the Zalari sent small communication requests, wanting to talk to the humans. They asked questions, so many questions. They wanted to know why humans cared so much. They wanted to know how humans became so strong. They wanted to know why no one else in the galaxy acted the same way. Hale answered personally. He told them about Earth, the dangerous storms, the powerful oceans, the predators that shaped human instincts. He explained how humans evolved to protect each other, because cooperation was the only way humans survived on a world that tried to kill them every day. He told them how humans believed in helping those who could not help themselves. And as he spoke, the Zelari listened with deep respect. One young Zelari asked, "Why do you defend us? We are small, and we have nothing to offer." Hale smiled gently. "Strength isn't measured by size," he said, "and you don't need to offer anything. Life deserves to be protected. That's enough." The child looked down, overwhelmed. No one had ever spoken to them like that. Slowly, bonds formed between the humans and the Zelari. They shared stories over comes. The Zelari sang soft, echoing songs that humans found beautiful. Humans taught the Zelari children simple human games to distract them from fear. Even during repairs, human engineers visited Zelari ships and volunteered to help fix damaged systems. The Zelari were not used to strangers walking into their ships with smiles instead of weapons. Meanwhile, Hale worked with his officers to prepare the last part of the journey. The fleet was approaching the edge of a safe sector controlled by a neutral council. Once they crossed that boundary, the hunters would not dare follow. The council kept powerful defensive satellites there, and attacking would be suicide. But the hunters were desperate now. They had chased the Zelari for too many years to give up at the final moment. They were close to close, and Hale knew they would attempt one last strike before the Zelari escaped completely. His prediction came true. 2 hours before the fleet reached a safety zone, sensors picked up a massive warp distortion behind them. Dozens of hunter ships appeared, far more than before. They had brought their full force. They were ready to wipe out the Zelari once and for all. Panic spread through the Zelari convoy. Their voices filled the comms with fear and trembling words. "They found us again. They won't stop. Commander Hale, please, we cannot escape this time." Hale shut down the panic with a single calm sentence. "No one dies today," he said. "Not while we're here." The fleet prepared for battle. Human ships moved into position, forming a barrier so tight that even light would have trouble slipping through. The Zelari watched quietly, their fear rising again, but now mixed with trust. They believed in the humans. They believed in their fire, their strength, and their impossible courage. The hunters spread out and advanced at terrifying speed. Their ships glowed with dark red energy, charging their weapons. They had no interest in warning shots this time. They were not trying to intimidate. They were trying to exterminate. Hale watched them approach with a cold, steady gaze. "Ramos," he said softly, "signal the fleet. Full power to forward shields. All cannons armed." "Aye, Commander." Hale leaned forward. "Will you give them one chance to turn around?" The entire bridge crew paused. "Sir, predators misunderstand mercy for weakness," Hale said. "Let's educate them." He opened a channel and broadcast his voice to the entire hunter fleet. "We see you," he said. "We know what you've done. And this ends now. Believe this system or face consequences you cannot survive." For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the hunters answered with an ear-piercing screech, and they charged. Human ships unleashed everything. Rail cannons roared. Plasma spirals lit up the sky. EMP lances pierced through hunter shields. Missiles streaked through the darkness and exploded against enemy hulls with shockwaves that echoed across the battlefield. The Zelari watched in silent amazement. The humans did not fight like other species. They fought like a storm, like a natural disaster wearing armor. They did not retreat, did not hesitate, did not break formation. They fought as if protecting the Zelari was the most important mission in the universe. The hunters tried to push through, but it was hopeless. Humans were built for conflict in a way the hunters could never understand. One by one, hunter ships fell apart, burning or exploding into debris. The survivors attempted to retreat, but human ships chased them, disabling engines and forcing surrenders. Within minutes, the once feared hunter fleet was broken, scattered, and defeated. The battlefield fell silent again. The Zelari began to cry, but not from fear this time. Their tears were full of relief, gratitude, and disbelief. They had survived. They were still alive. For the first time in years, they had a future. When the last hunter ship fled into deep space, Hale spoke softly into the comms. "It's over," he said. "You're safe now." The Zelari leader appeared on screen, voice trembling with emotion. "Commander Hale, your people have given us our lives back. We cannot repay this." Hale shook his head. "You don't need to repay anything. Just live. That's enough." The convoy finally crossed into the protected zone. The neutral council welcomed the Zelari and provided safe planets for them to settle. Humans stayed with them until every ship landed safely. As the last Zelari stepped off their transport, they looked back at the massive human warships hovering above, vigilant, loyal, and unbroken. The Zelari would never forget what the humans did, and the galaxy would soon learn a powerful truth. If you threatened the weak, if you hunted the helpless, if you tried to erase an entire species, you were not just facing your victims, you were facing the Deathworlders. And the Deathworlders always fought back. Asterisk. When the Zelari finally stepped onto safe ground, The feeling inside them was something they had almost forgotten: peace, real peace, not the temporary quiet they felt between running and hiding, but a deep, steady peace that wrapped around their hearts and reminded them what life was supposed to feel like. The sky above the protected world was soft and pale, with two small moons that rose together like watchful eyes. The air was warm, carrying the smell of growing plants instead of burning metal. For the Zalari, it felt like waking from a long nightmare. The humans stood at a distance, watching the Zalari with calm pride. They did not expect praise. They did not expect thanks. They were simply happy to see the Zalari alive, walking, breathing, talking, laughing, holding hands, things the hunters had tried to take from them. Commander Hale stood with his arms behind his back, shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. His crew gathered beside him, sharing the same quiet satisfaction. They had fought hard, taken risks, and pushed their ships to their limits, but seeing the Zalari safe made everything worth it. One of the younger Zalari children hesitated near the landing ramp. Turning back to look at Hale, the child's silver eyes shimmered. Then they ran toward him with small steps and hugged his leg tightly. The entire human crew froze, surprised. Zalari rarely touched outsiders. Their culture taught caution, taught distance, taught fear, but this child didn't fear them. Not anymore. Hale knelt down gently. The child looked up at him and whispered, "Thank you." It was such a small voice, yet it struck deeper than any grand speech. Hale placed a hand softly on the child's shoulder. "You're safe now," he said. "Go live your life. Go be happy." The child nodded and ran back to join the other Zalari. As the humans prepared to leave, the Zalari leader approached Hale. Their steps were slow, heavy with emotion. When they stopped in front of him, they struggled to form words. Their voice wavered like wind through a cracked window. "You did not just save us," the leader said. "You saved what we thought we had lost forever, our hope." Hale looked into their trembling eyes. "Hope deserves protection just as much as life." The leader bowed deeply, a gesture rarely given to any species. "We will remember humans for generations. Your bravery will shape us. We will rebuild because you gave us the time to breathe." Hale's expression softened. "Rebuilding is the first step. The galaxy will learn who the Zalari truly are, not just victims, but survivors." And he meant it. Humans had seen the Zalari's strength, even if the Zalari themselves couldn't see it yet. After the farewells, the human fleet lifted off slowly, engines glowing like distant stars. The Zalari watched the ships rise, not with fear this time, but with deep admiration. They would always remember the silhouette of those enormous vessels, giant guardians, vanishing into the sky. But the journey didn't end with the Zalari's rescue. Back on the Resolute, Hale held a final meeting with his officers. They sat in a circle around the dimly lit command table, the glow of space flickering outside the windows. "The Zalari are safe," Ramos said, exhaling. "We did it." "Not entirely," Hale replied. "The hunters are still out there, and they won't stop with the Zalari. Predators like that will find new victims." Silence fell across the room. Cora leaned forward. "So we report this to the Galactic Council?" Hale nodded. "Every detail. The Council needs to understand the threat. They need to know humans are done standing by while peaceful species get wiped out. There was a time, long ago, when humans were avoided in the galaxy. Other species looked at them with fear. Deathworlders, dangerous, unpredictable, too rough, too bold. But today, something shifted. Today, fear turned into respect. By the time the human fleet returned to Allied space, rumors were spreading everywhere. The story of what the humans had done was traveling faster than any ship. Tales of how humans shielded a helpless species with their own bodies. Tales of how they faced a predator fleet alone and broke it. Tales of how they refused to leave the Zalari even when they were outnumbered. Whispers followed them. They fought not for land, not for power, just to protect strangers. They defended the Zalari like they were their own children. They faced the hunters and did not hesitate. They are dead, but they are protectors. For the first time in a long time, humanity's reputation changed, not because of fear, but because of compassion. When the fleet docked at their home station, crowds gathered to welcome them. They weren't celebrating victory, they were celebrating humanity's courage. Families hugged returning crew members. Officers received quiet smiles from strangers who understood the importance of what had happened. Even the Galactic Council famous for avoiding a formal message to Hale. "Your actions have altered the course of events beyond your sector. The Council acknowledges the bravery of the Deathworlders. You have protected the vulnerable when many chose to ignore them." Hale read the message, nodded once, and set it aside. Praise was not why they did it. Later that night, alone in his quarters, Hale finally had a moment to breathe. He stood by the window, staring at the stars. They looked peaceful, but he knew what hid among them: danger, cruelty, hunger, darkness. The galaxy was full of species who suffered quietly, too afraid to ask for help, too small for anyone to care. He thought of the Zalari children playing in safe fields now, laughing under gentle sunlight. He thought of the elders planting their first crops on their new world. He thought of the young mother he saw holding her baby as they left the transport, whispering that they were finally free. He thought of all the species who might never know freedom. Humans could not save everyone, but they could choose to save those in front of them. Hale closed his eyes for a moment and let the weight of everything settle. He was tired. Fighting for life always came with a cost, but he also felt proud of his crew, proud of humanity, proud of the flames of courage that burned in their hearts. The next morning, the crew held a small memorial for the lives lost in the battles. Humans always honored sacrifice, even when the galaxy did not. They stood in silence as Commander Hale spoke. "We do not fight because we enjoy war," he said. "We fight because someone must stand between darkness and the innocent. If not us, then who?" His words echoed through the hall, steady and powerful. On the Zalari homeworld, the survivors held their own ceremony. They gathered in a circle and lit small floating lanterns, sending them into the sky. Each lantern represented gratitude. Some lanterns were decorated with drawings of human ships. Others carried simple words like thank you, protector, hope, or family. The lanterns drifted upward, rising like soft glowing stars until the wind carried them beyond sight. The Zalari leader spoke quietly. "Without the humans, we would have been erased from the galaxy. They protected us. They fought for us. They gave us a future. We owe them not debt, but memory. We will remember them as long as we exist." Their words were carried by translators across the protected zone, reaching neighboring species and council officials. The reputation of humans grew, but more importantly, the Zalari began rebuilding. They used the safe world to grow new families, create new homes, and write new stories. Their culture changed forever. Children grew up learning that humans were the ones who saved them when the galaxy looked away. Some even dreamed of visiting Earth someday to thank the humans personally. Meanwhile, Hale prepared a new report about the Hunters. He sent it to every major alliance. He warned them that the Hunters would not stop, but he also made a promise: if they rise again, humans will be there. We do not abandon those who need us. This simple message spread through council halls like wildfire. In the months that followed, other small species reached out to the humans. Some asked for help, some asked for advice, some just wanted to say thank you for what they did for the Zalari. Humanity realized something powerful. They were no longer the outsiders. They were no longer the unpredictable strangers. They were no longer feared because of their violent world. They were respected because of their hearts. The galaxy began to see Deathworlders not as destroyers, but as guardians. And on quiet nights, when the stars shimmered softly outside his window, Commander Hale thought once more about the Zalari children running free under a safe sky. He knew the Hunters might rise again. He knew the galaxy would always have shadows. But he also knew this: as long as there were humans in space, the helpless would never be alone, because the Deathworlders had proven something the galaxy would remember forever. They did not fight for conquest. They did not fight for glory. They fought for life, and that made all the difference.